Come on, we all know it's a classic. Let's just do this. Okay, everybody, today we're going all the way back to 1976, the year of the bicentennial. I remember going to the parade when I was a kid to look at a movie that is always looked back upon as one of the all-time great horror classics ever made. But was it really? And that's what we're here to discuss. We're talking about The Omen. But before we go any further, before we dig into this gem anymore, once again, and as always, to the trailer.
For generations, the Thorns have been a family of tremendous wealth, position, and power. The perfect marriage of Ambassador Robert Thorn and his wife Katherine was fulfilled by the birth of their son, Damien. And then, when the child was 5 years old, something terrible happened. And then it happened again. Was it an accident? Was it murder? Was it a coincidence? Or was it an omen?
Look at me, Damien. It's all for you.
20th Century Fox presents a film of psychological suspense about an occurrence of earth-shaking importance. Gregory Peck, Remick, The Omen.
I was at the hospital, Mr. Thorn, the night your son was born. I saw its mother. I saw its mother.
I have fears. I have such fears.
What kind of fears?
Its mother, Mr. Thorn.
You saw my wife.
Its mother.
What is it that you're trying to say?
His mother was a...
This is not a human child. Make no mistake.
There are those who will die for him. There are those who will kill for him. Who is he? What does he want? Where did he come from? And can he be stopped? Gregory Peck, Remick, The Omen. If this is the truth, where does it end?
Okay, this motion picture was directed by the one and only Richard Donner. What? Who? Don't go there. We're talking about he did Superman, and by reports, most of Superman 2. He did Inside Moves, and The Toy, and Goonies, for God's sake, and Lady Hawk, and Scrooge, and Radio Flyer, and Maverick, and Assassins, and Conspiracy Theory. He did TV like Cannon and Kojak, Twilight Zone, Danger Island, and of course he did all the Lethal Weapon movies. What? Martin Riggs on a rampage? Yes. Is what it is, was as it was. Let's keep going. Okay, playing Robert Thorn, Gregory Peck. Get out of here. I think this might be the first movie I've ever done with him in it. I've done hundreds. Whatever. Let's get going. We're talking about he was in things like To Kill a Mockingbird and Spellbound and Roman Holiday and The Boys from Brazil and Cape Fear and The Guns of Navarone and Pork Chop Hill and Moby Dick and Captain Horatio Hornblower and 12 O'Clock High and Duel in the Sun and MacArthur and the Seawolves. So we're talking about a guy with a massive career. Is what it was. Kind of one of those legendary figures from the golden age of Hollywood. Let's keep moving. Playing Katherine Thorn, Remick. Mostly TV. Did some movies. Let's get going. We're talking about she was in things like Anatomy of a Murder and Days of Wine and Roses, in The Wheeler Dealers, and Baby, the Rain Must Fall, and Telephone, and The Competition, and Experimented Terror, and Wild River, and literally so many TV shows and so many TV movies. I'm not even going to waste my time. Just, she was in a lot of television movies back in the day, just as it was. Playing Jennings, the one, the only, David Warner. You know, I'm a fan of the David Warner. Let's roll. We're talking about Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. We're talking about Titanic and Tron and Nightwing and In the Mouth of Madness and Waxwork and Time Bandits and Time After Time and The Island and Cross of Iron and The Fixer and Scream 2 and The Concorde 79 and so much TV work and voice work and all that kind of shit. I couldn't even begin to list them all. He was in everything. David Warner is a staple of anybody watching movies from, say, 1970 to the, well, whatever. We just lost him not too long ago. Is what it is. David Warner. Poof. Playing Miss Baylock. Billie. Whitelaw. Let's run through the gambit here. We're talking about she was in things like Hot Fuzz and Quills and The Lost Son and The Dressmaker and Slayground and tons of TV. Napoleon in Love, Private Schultz, Firm Friends, Born to Run, Space 1999. Come on, that show. Who didn't love it? I mean, it had flaws, but who didn't love it? Is what it was. Let's keep rolling. Playing Father Brennan. Project Troughton. Oh, yes. I just mentioned not too long ago another movie. Let's go to work. We're talking about he was in things like Jason and the Argonauts, and he was in Phantom of the Opera, and Scars of Dracula, A Hitch in Time, and Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger, which is what I just talked about not too long ago, and The Viking Queen, and massive TV, from The Saint, The Six Wives of Henry VIII, A Family at War, and of course, probably most famously, Doctor Who. He was on that for years. Doctor Who, a show that's been around since before I was born, and I'm ancient. Is what it was. And of course, there's other names that we should mention this. You got Harvey Steffens playing Damien. He actually played a reporter in the remake, so that is what it was. We're talking about people like Martin Benson, who played Father Spiletto. He was in The King and I and Goldfinger. And John Stride, the psychiatrist, was in Juggernaut and A Bridge Too Far. And Holly Palance, come on, The Best of Times. I love that movie. I reviewed it. The Thorn Birds, well, she played the nanny. So, there's a bunch of little faces that come and go in this. They're here, they're there, a little bit of everywhere. Keep your eyes out, you'll spot some faces. Okay, everybody, I'm going to do this in 90 seconds or less, so I can keep it short, keep it fast, keep it entertaining, keep it moving, so we get to where we'd much rather be, the summation. And if you don't want any spoilers, and I'm never going to give you the end of a movie, then you can just skip past this point and go right to the summation. But this is going to kind of give you the ballpark of where we're at. You got this guy. He is going to his wife's birth. He's some American diplomat, is what it is. We're talking about Gregory Peck. And when he gets there, he finds out that his wife lost the baby. The baby died in birth. She's going to be devastated. So, the priest at this hospital in Rome says, hey, we got a deal for you. Somebody just had a baby. They don't want the baby. You can be the parent of this child. You can be the one that raises this child as his own. He goes, no, my wife wants her own child. He goes, the wife don't have to know. The wife don't have to know. We'll just slip him right in there. Thorn goes along with it, Gregory Peck, and before you know it, they're off. Cut to several years later. Thorn is about to be made the ambassador from the United States to the UK, so he's now living off in London with his wife, and everything is hunky-dory as they're having a birthday party for their child, Damien. Anyway, little Damien is there. The nanny's taking care of him. You see him give some weird looks to a Rottweiler, is what it is. We'll get rolling. But before you know it, the nanny says, hey, Damien, it's all for you, it's all for you. And she throws herself off the roof of the house with a rope around her neck and commits suicide. Well, it is what it is. Oh, before you know it, this priest shows up. He's looking a little haggard, a little bit wild, and he says to Mr. Thorn, he goes, listen, I need to talk to you. There's something wrong with your child. He's going to kill. He's killed again. He's going to kill some more. He's going to kill you. He's going to kill your wife. He's going to take your powers. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever. Thorn says, basically, get the hell out of here, dude. I don't know what's going on with you. You're a little bit crazy. You're a little bit wild. It is what it is. In the middle of all this, you have this photographer. He's at the birthday party. He's at Thorn's work. He's always taking pictures of everything going on and around. So it's a little bit weird. It's a little bit odd. But it is what it is. He's always on the scene. They try to take little Damien to a wedding. He goes crazy. He can't be put into a church. Shit gets wild. Shit gets nuts. In the middle of all of this, you have this woman who shows up who's going to be his new nanny since the other one just threw herself by the sweet by and by. And nobody really asked for this chick. Nobody knows where she came from. She's basically sent by the agency. Wink, wink. Who the hell knows? Whatever. She's got a big Roddy with her. Uh-oh. Another sign that bad things are coming. Anyway, long story short, cut a little bit farther ahead. Thorn meets up with that priest again. The priest says, hey, he's going to kill your wife. He's going to kill the child she's carrying because you don't even know she's pregnant. And before you know, He's going to kill you, and all the hell's going to break loose. Everything's going to go wrong, and the world's going to end. This kid has been prophesized. Shit is getting crazy. Well, Thorn doesn't believe him until one day his wife is kind of like knocked off of a ledge and hurt by Mr. Damien. Finds out she's pregnant. She loses the baby. Shortly after, she is murdered. Uh-oh, things are going wrong. Now, Thorn says there's some serious problems. In the midst of all that, the reporter comes back and says, listen to him, man. I know some crazy shit's going on. I'm here to help simply because, well, I'm taking some photographs and I see some weird shit in the photos that show people are dying, and I see one of me and I'm going to die. It is what it is. Long story short, keep on moving. These two go on an adventure together to find the truth. They go back to Rome. They look for that hospital that Damien was born in, but it's all burnt to the ground. And they do find out that the one priest there who talked to him into taking the baby has renounced, well, Jesus, God, everything. You know what I mean? And it turns out that he was working to set them up with this little demon baby. Well, they go to the cemetery, they look into the graves, and they find out that inside the grave of the woman who supposedly gave this thing is an animal. And inside the other grave, where his child has really been swapped with, they find out his child was murdered. Had his head smashed in with a hammer or some crazy shit. Who knows? And it was all a big plot to get them to take the demon baby, Damien, and go forth. Well, I'm not going to go too much past that. I'm just going to say that Thorn is given the job by this exorcist guy of how to dispose of this evil demon baby. Can he do it? Will he do it? What happens to him? What happens to David Warner? It doesn't make a difference. It is what it is. I've given you too much. You got the idea what this thing is about. Let's get going to the summation. Okay, let's get down to brass taxes. Does the Omen work? Yeah, the Omen works. Come on, everybody knows it. Everybody loves it. It spawned a couple sequels and a remake. It's one of the all-time little classics. Is it perfect? Well, we'll take some of that apart in just a second. But let's get the big three out of the way. First of all, the directing. The movie's beautiful to look at. It is. It's absolutely beautiful to look at. Every frame is shot so well that you sit there and you say to yourself, it's gorgeous, yet it builds suspense. It's just framed and shot perfectly. So to look at, this motion picture, grade A. Writing. Both the story and the dialogue, top notch. No complaints whatsoever. So, the writing department moves it along. The dialogue coming out of the characters' mouths is solid. And played solid, we'll get to that in a moment. But the writing, no complaints, no problems. There you go. The acting! You got a list of real solid talent in this thing. So the acting is way above par for what you would expect in this kind of a motion picture. It's solid, it's well delivered. David Warner is great as always. Gregory Peck, really good. Lee Remick, solid. Holds her job. So everybody does a really good job in this. Some actors might have overperformed, call it whatever you want, their parts. We'll touch on that a little bit later. But beyond that, the acting is more than fine. Now, why does this motion picture work? Because it does simply what it's supposed to do. It keeps you interested. It keeps you a little terrified. It keeps you on the edge of your seat, and it keeps you watching with a good deal of suspense. So, any way you look at it, this motion picture fulfills what it set out to be. And I love the fact that the motion picture is basically a little horror, supernatural jaunt, really, that at one point or another turns into kind of a detective story, where you have Gregory Peck and you have David Warner running around doing the let me find this clue that leads to that clue and that clue that leads to this clue and all that kind of stuff. And when they get there, you're finding the pieces with them, you're discovering the things with them, and then it leads you back into a supernatural flick. So you have almost like this supernatural detective noir back to a supernatural motion picture, and it just delivers. What more can I say? Also, you feel the terror of the parents in this motion picture too. Let's be brutally honest. You got this one woman who's being basically tortured by the feeling that this is not her child, that there is something wrong with this kid, that this kid is definitely not what she bargained for in life, and believes that there is something wrong with him, but believes that she is insane because it can't possibly be this wonderful little baby. It must be me. So you have her torment. You have the torment of a father who knows this is not really his kid, who knows the secret truth, who never really ever reveals it to his wife, even though he seems to reveal it to just about everybody else later on, but he never reveals to his wife what's really going on, that that is not their child, that this is some adopted baby from God knows where, and that there is something seriously wrong with this kid. And you feel his pain as he is trying, in his own way, to deal with the thoughts of battling, combating, possibly taking out this evil child with the fact that for the first 4 or 5 years of his life, he thought of this kid like his kid. He took care of him. He did everything with him. So he's tormented between the, my God, this kid is a demon and put in our care, or, but I raised this kid, how can this all be? So you get all of those things wrapped into one, and there's a lot of different emotional baggage going on, and they deliver it fairly well. And like I always say about any movie that's good or solid, the suspense stays solid and the pacing stays true to itself. This movie never speeds up or slows down a lot. It is what it is. It comes at you at a very monolinear pace. Yes, there's some scenes that speed up, like the dogs trying to get them in the graveyard and stuff like that. But as a whole, you know the pace that you're going to get. It very much like a motion picture, and I'll tell you why I'm bringing this up later, but The Changeling, you know the mode you're in from beginning to end. And it stays like that, and it works. So kudos for that. Now, are there problems with this motion picture? Problems with every motion picture, folks. This one has its own. A couple things. I thought Patrick Troughton, I can never say his name right. Sorry, just can't do it. I thought they had him play the kind of crazed priest a little bit heavy. He laid it on a little thick. He probably could have got a lot more done if he explained things in a rational manner instead of just like spitting out Book of Revelations quotes and everything. So I thought they could have necked that character down a little bit and eased him in a little bit more logically than what they did. Also, let's be honest. Remick, Gregory, Peck, they did fine in their roles, but they were a little bit miscast in this. This is the 1970s, everybody. It's not like it is today. They seemed a little bit old to be having a child at that point. That might sound a little harsh, but back then, you know, somebody didn't wait until they're well into their 40s or 60s or whatever it is, usually to have their first kid. So the casting seemed a little off. It probably would have been a little bit better if they had two people playing it, even though they were great in their roles, if they had two people playing it that were maybe at least each a decade younger, and it might have seemed a little bit more plausible. Also, for a movie that's really building solid suspense, there's points in this thing where I thought the musical cues were just a little bit heavy and a little bit off. You know what I mean? Not bad. You're not going to listen to music to this and say, oh, this is shit. But there's parts where you're going to say, oh, they kind of laid it on a little heavy here, and they kind of, not a lot. It's not criminal. It's not really bad. But there's points where I thought the musical cues were just a little bit uneven. Also, for a motion picture that feels incredibly location-ish, you know what I mean? It feels like you're really in a house. It feels like you're really in a hospital. It feels like you're really in Rome. It feels like you're really in London. Everything's very, very real feeling. I couldn't help but notice that the cemetery set, where they find Thorn's real baby and the mother animal, whatever, that gave birth to the demon baby, buried, did feel like you just stepped onto a television set. It did. It was like, okay, I'm in the real world, and now I'm clearly on a soundstage. I'm clearly looking at fake trees. I'm clearly looking at fake backdrops behind the hills. I went from, you know, Serpico to Wizard of Oz. I can feel there's a difference here. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's not the biggest sin I've ever seen, but there is a little bit of that Salem's Lot cemetery shit in it, where you go in and you're like, okay, I know where I am right now. They're in building like whatever at Pinewood or some shit, who knows. But, I mean, you get that vibe. So there was a little bit of that. Also, the David Warner character, it's kind of weird because he's kind of like creepy in the beginning. He's just kind of like lecturing around, taking photos of everything. You're like, this guy's got to be a blackmailer or some weirdo behind the scene or anything like that. But all of a sudden, his character, which I guess in a way is good, did not follow what you thought the character was going to follow. You felt like you're being led to believe one thing, and you never really understand why he's ever there taking all these photos and snooping around. But it turns out that, okay, he's going to wind up helping Gregory Peck, and he stumbles across this thing that shows that people are going to die. But you never really got the full gist of why this character was doing this shit in the first place. Why is he always snooping around? Why is he always doing it? You never got that. It's just kind of like, well, he's doing these weird things, and then, hey, he's here to help. So, take that for what it's worth. Although I will say, he's there to help because he knows he's going to die too, so there's a little bit of selfishness in there, just saying. And two last things I'm going to throw out there. Some of the stylistic choices, especially early in this motion picture, just seem like they came out of left field. There's a couple scenes in the motion picture where they're like doing things, and all of a sudden it'll turn like almost like a family montage. It'll be like a normal movie, and then it'll just break off for a second and go into a bunch of still photos of them playing with the child growing up, and it's just kind of like weird. Like, I understand what that was about. It didn't really need to be there. It was kind of like a weird juxtaposition of, I don't understand it. But this movie has one or two moments where there's a stylistic choice, where they're going to put in something as almost like an art filmish type thing, where they throw it in, and it breaks the realistic cinematic vibe that it was going for. So I don't know why that happened in a couple moments. I don't know what the idea was beyond that. But when they jump out, they're going to jump out at you. You're going to be like, why'd they just do that there? I don't get that. It just didn't fit the rest of the motion picture. But it's only a couple times for a few seconds. It is what it is. You just got to roll with it. And of course, the ending was good. The ending's solid. It's paced well. It builds up well. You never got that super heart-pounding ending that you think might be coming up where it's crazy or something like that, but it stays true to the tone of the movie. This movie never breaks out into like a real wild ride. So yes, it does stay true to itself, but the ending was not as nail-biting as you might think. I mean, it was good. It was good. I'm not putting it down. It was good. I'm just saying it doesn't ramp up as heavy as it might have, but it was still good. Anyway, folks, get out there and watch The Omen from 1976. Highly remembered, thought of as a classic, should be remembered, should be enjoyed. Is it the best of the lot? I wouldn't say so. But is it very, very good and enjoyable? Most definitely. There's a YouTube channel out there, I think it's called The Drunk Review, that actually has like these throwbacks, the old drive-in movies where they play two movies back to back. And the reason that I brought up The Changeling earlier, which is one of my favorite films, everybody knows that, is because they do that on there. And you can watch the two of them back to back. I still think something like The Changeling was a notch above The Omen. Very similar paces, very similar vibes, both really good movies. But because a movie like The Changeling never broke out from what it was into these little couple stylistic choices that were a little flawed, and stayed a little bit more grounded to truth without putting in anything that was kind of Art Nouveau, if you will. I always thought it was a better motion picture, a slightly more true to itself motion picture, although The Omen is right there with it. So if you get a chance, go by that website or that YouTube channel. You can check out both of them in one night, have yourself a good time. Anyway, everybody, be good. Take care. Stay out of trouble. Be there for a friend. Be kind to a stranger. But most of all, and I mean most of all, never, and I mean never, take any bullshit from anybody. See you all soon.